Okay, let's be real for a moment. Gilbert is not this secret utopia. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but we have seen crazy growth. I mean, in the 80s, there was less than 6,000 people, and now there's almost 300,000 people. So there must be some reason why so many people are attracted to Gilbert and why it's one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. So today I'm actually going to share reasons my clients have moved here, my friends have moved here, why I've moved here. And I'm not going to give you like this cliche, boring, oh, the weather's great, it's always sunny in the wintertime. We're going to talk about real reasons. And if you already live in Gilbert, I would love to hear the reason why you moved here. So go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'm Courtney Strelzik. I'm a local real estate agent here. And my goal with this channel is to give you information about living here, maybe things that you couldn't necessarily Google or put into ChatGPT. So let's start off talking about one of the biggest reasons people find themselves moving, and that's the job market. So something to consider about this area is, it's much more diversified than it was in 2008. I mean, 2008 wasn't the most ideal market for Gilbert, but now we see a ton of variety of jobs, education, healthcare. Of course, we've seen areas like Elliott Corridor and Price Corridor bring in a lot of tech jobs. And even though a lot of these companies aren't necessarily directly in Gilbert, Gilbert is a pretty central area, so it's very easy to commute to these areas like Mesa, Chandler, or Tempe. And when you see a lot of diversity and job growth in a certain area, it usually is a good indicator that there's economic stability, and that has been a huge draw to Gilbert. Now, the second reason we hear people moving to Gilbert, and this is probably actually the most common reason, is it's family friendly. But what does that mean exactly? Well, first off, we have a lot of great public parks. We have Gilbert Regional Park, which is a phenomenal park. They have this huge playground in the center of it. We also have Discovery Park, Freestone. Can't forget about Freestone. That's a Gilbert staple. There's also several sport complexes for older kids. Cactus Yards is one that's pretty remarkable, actually. And a lot of these parks will hold different events for either younger kids, older kids. So it's definitely pretty family-centric from that regard. There's also a lot of organized subdivisions or master plan communities in Gilbert. So we see a lot of events like Easter egg hunts or, for example, Power Ranch hosts movie nights in the pool. And of course, Agritopia, they have put on quite this Christmas spectacle. Really cool thing to experience even if you don't live there, is to go and walk around. And for the summer months, we also have a lot of like indoor parks, trampoline parks. There's also this one place called Main Event. It's basically like a much better version of Dave and Buster's. And honestly, that's not just for kids, that's for anyone. And of course, our schools. So Gilbert School District has been A-rated. I'll put some resources down in the description if you want to do a little bit more research. And on top of that, if you don't want to use public schools, there's a lot of other options. We have private schools, charter schools. So reason number 3 I hear people choosing Gilbert is the aesthetic of the city. Or technically it's a town, but they've done a great job just keeping it really clean. The landscaping looks really good. There's a lot of vegetation. And compared to some of its neighboring cities like Queen Creek or Santan Valley, the vegetation is also much more mature. So it definitely feels greener and a little bit more shaded. Now, keep in mind, we're still in the desert, so it's not like the East Coast here, but Gilbert, as a city itself, is doing really, really a good job. And when you can drive to some other areas like Glendale or even South Phoenix, it's going to have a much different feel. So the fourth reason why a lot of people are moving here is affordability. Now, I know there are some people watching this right now that are probably squirming when I say this, but hear me out. So a lot of people that are coming from like the Pacific Northwest, the East Coast, California, of course, even a place like Chicagoland area, when you compare Gilbert to those places and you're looking at income to cost of living, we're actually doing pretty well. But a lot of times people do complain about the taxes, particularly property taxes and income taxes in those areas. And when you look at a home that's selling around the median sales price here in Gilbert, a lot of people are paying like $200 a month for property taxes. And then we have a flat rate for income tax here as well. So a lot of people are saving quite a bit of money when they relocate here. And the reason I said, okay, some people are going to squirm when I say Gilbert is affordable is because really related to the topic surrounding home prices. So historically, before COVID, home prices were very inexpensive. in Gilbert, but in the past handful of years, we've seen it go up quite a bit. And now the median sales price is in the high 500s right now. Home prices have gone up quite a bit. There's no sugarcoating about it, but this isn't necessarily, an issue unique to Gilbert. This is something that we're seeing across the board or nationally. Now, keep in mind, Gilbert, when you look at all the cities in Phoenix Metro, Gilbert is certainly not the most affordable area. As a rule of thumb, the further on the outskirts of Phoenix Metro you go, so think areas like Buckeye or Santan Valley, those are going to be the areas that are typically the most affordable, or you're going to get the best bang for your buck. But the homes are also not near as expensive as, Central Phoenix, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, or even certain parts of Chandler and Tempe. So the fifth reason why I hear people moving here is because it's easier to build community or make friends than some other areas. Now, it does seem the older you get, the harder it is to make new friends, but something to consider about Gilbert, it's not a transient area so much, but a lot of people that live here have relocated here from another state or another city at least. Very rarely do we actually meet people that were born and raised in Gilbert. I lived on the East Coast for a little bit, and I was in a town where everyone went to kindergarten together, they grew up together, they had the same group of friends for 30, 40 years, so they weren't really as open to making new friendships. However, since everyone really is in the same boat here or knows how it feels to be new, I do find here that people are just a little bit more open to making new friendships. However, I will say I just talked to someone pretty recently saying they did not have an easy experience when they first moved here. She was single, she was working from home in her late 20s, and she said it was incredibly difficult for her to make friends. It actually took her about 2 years. She joined a gym and was able to connect with some people there. Now, my husband and I moved here in 2015. He was studying at AT Still, getting his doctorate in physical therapy, and I started working in a hospital, and really we started making friends and connections just through school and work. And then once you kind of start your friend group, I feel like it just kind of snowballs and it's easier to meet more and more people. Now, the next reason I find a lot of people are moving to Gilbert, particularly Gilbert over some of our sister cities, is things to do or general quality of life here. We have quite a few restaurants and dining options. Of course, you have downtown Gilbert, but there's also Epicenter at Agritopia, a lot of restaurants and some shops there. Of course, you have Santan Village, which is our main shopping mall. There's Dana Park, Verde at Cooley Station, and there's also a lot of things like, Top Golf, and of course, regular golf. We've also seen more nightlife. This is primarily in downtown Gilbert, and also slightly higher end restaurants. We also see a lot of community events like the Gilbert Farmers Market, concert series. But something to note before I go on, keep in mind, Gilbert is not like a super urban area. It still has somewhat of a suburban feel. So if you're expecting something like San Francisco or New York, that's not happening. I would say Gilbert has a lot more options compared to, let's say most parts of Mesa or Queen Creek or Santan, but it's still, somewhat of a suburban feel. Don't get me wrong. So something to keep in mind too, what's more important or almost more important than the reasons to move here are the reasons not to move to Gilbert. And there are quite a few. Don't get me wrong. Go ahead and watch this video right here. I break that down. Thank you so much for your time and have a fantastic day.